The question is an attack on Bain Capital, an attack on free markets, and on America's entrepreneurial culture. Steve Forbes is Rick Perry's economic advisor. Of course, he's also chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes magazine. Kevin Madden is Romney's former advisor. So a good pairing here tonight, gentlemen. Let me start off with you, Steve. Gingrich today was asked by a Santorum supporter about that attack on Mitt Romney. And the supporter was saying, hey, go after Romney for other things, not for this. And Gingrich actually seemed to agree with the supporter. He said, blaming President Obama, here's what he said, quote, Obama just makes it impossible to talk rationally in this area because he's so deeply into class warfare. I agree with you entirely. So it seems like Gingrich is backing off Mitt Romney. Should Rick Perry?
Well, I think it's, first of all, I think you have to make a distinction between equity capital, equity funds in general. They do perform a real service. But there are some questions with a few of the companies that Bain were involved with where they took out dividends and huge management fees, and then the company went broke. Most of they had a very good record long term, but he should answer those questions on those particulars. That's perfectly legitimate. And I think what you're going to see unfold in South Carolina and then perhaps in Florida is we are going to get some real issues, big issues with Mr. Romney. One is, does he have a real good radical tax simplification proposal to put on the table, which Rick does and others have. He has not done that yet. He's also got to get around this thing of mandates for health care. And if he says something good on the dollar, then he'll be stronger. But this is something that has to be done. He's got to get the real proposals on the table on taxes, on health care, so that people will feel that he can lead the party.
And for those who don't know this, and a lot of you viewers probably do, but obviously Steve Forbes, one of the original authors of the whole concept of a flat tax, which is one of the reasons you supported Rick Perry. But when Rick Perry goes into great detail about vultures out on limbs and swooping in and taking over companies, I mean, I know you're laughing here, but does that feel a little bit as a guy who sees this and goes, gosh, I wish my candidate weren't talking like that?
No, it's colorful rhetoric, and it makes the point that Romney has to answer questions about those handful of companies where they did take out dividends and management fees, and then the companies went bust. And so if he doesn't deal with it now, he's going to have to deal with it under more adverse circumstances in the fall.
Which companies? Do you know offhand? I'm just wondering to ask Kevin.
I don't, but I know there are 2 or 3 where they did take out. The Journal referred to them on
the Journal's story on Monday. Kevin Madden, what's your response to that? That Steve Forbes seems to be saying, look, most of these cases Bain did good things, but there are some where they did not, and Mitt Romney needs to answer to those questions.
Well, look, I think in every instance, private equity groups like Bain Capital, what they've tried to do is make an investment, and then they try to make profit on that investment. They try to make an investment in order to help a company grow. Oftentimes, they take over companies that are underperforming or not performing up to potential, and they try to bring their potential out of them, and they try to make them perform again. I think that's the genesis of every single investment that you're seeing from Bain and others in that private equity world. I think it's pretty appalling, though, the language that you hear from Rick Perry, the language that you hear from Newt Gingrich, which actually echoes that of the very far left. Folks like Michael Moore and MoveOn.org, who are trying to always attack free enterprise and attack economic freedoms. We are not surprised that these sort of arguments would come up during this presidential campaign. We fully expect that those on the left and President Obama are going to try and make these, offer up these distortions about free enterprise. What we find surprising is that it would come from fellow Republicans, people who are supposed to defend free enterprise and economic freedoms.
It is interesting. Joe Biden was on the same side as Rick Perry, Steve.
Well, I think the Wall Street Journal, for example, had a very good editorial this morning actually defending Mitt Romney and the concept of capital, having equity funds. But they also did raise the question, he must answer questions about those handfuls of situations where they went in a company that was weak and prematurely took out dividends and excess management fees. So answering those questions are very legitimate, and better to get that out of the way now than in the fall. No one is arguing against the concept of having equity funds going in with companies that are weak, trying to strengthen them up, trying to turn them around. But where you overdid it, took out dividends prematurely, answer the question. Very simple.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I just real quickly. I mean, I think it's the reason that Rick Perry is floundering in the polls is that he's totally focused on Governor Romney and criticizing Governor Romney and attacking free enterprise. He's not talking about the future. He's not talking about what he would do as president. The reason Governor Romney is doing so well, the reason that he won in Iowa, the reason he won in New Hampshire, and why he's going to do very well in these upcoming primary states is because he's focused on putting the American people back to work and telling the American people what he would do for the future.
Kevin, set the record straight. Rick Perry has talked about the flat tax, has talked about excess regulation, which costs this economy $1.7 trillion a year. And in terms of your own candidate, when is he going to put on the table a real radical tax simplification program? He's hinted at it in the past, but he hasn't put anything real on the table. He's also told the Wall Street Journal in that interview a couple of weeks ago that he's open-minded to a VAT, a value-added tax, which would be poison for this country, as it has been for Western Europe.
If you look at this last week, Mr. Forbes, Mr. Forbes, Rick Perry has done nothing but talk about what he would do to attack free enterprise. He's done nothing but talk about what he would do.
Kevin, and
then if you look at Governor Romney's program, he has talked in very comprehensive terms about what he would do to make taxes lower, to make taxes flatter, how he would reduce and reform the corporate tax rate so that American companies, big and small, can flourish, create jobs across the country. He's talking about the economic future of this country, and what Rick Perry is engaged in is attacking free market capitalism. I think that we are in a wonderful position right now to win the party, unite conservatives who are absolutely filleting Rick Perry and Newt Gingrich, filleting them because what they've done is attack the fundamentals of free market enterprise.
And you're not going to get real unification, whoever the candidate is, unless your guy puts on the table a genuine radical tax simplification program. He's hinted at it. He hinted at it a couple of days ago on another show, but he hasn't put it on the table. And he must repudiate the idea of a VAT. And he also got to deal with, why did he put that individual mandate in Massachusetts on health care?
Quickly before we go, Steve Forbes, if Rick Perry does end up leaving the race, he is lagging the polls, who knows what will happen, but if he does, would you back Mitt Romney?
I'll look at the field again, and if Mr. Romney's got a good flat tax proposal on the table, I'll be very receptive.
And Kevin, do you think Mitt Romney will come up with a further specific tax plan, or have we seen what we're going to see?
Yeah, no, I think this is a great part of this Republican debate, and also the general election will be more details coming about what Governor Romney would do to lower taxes, make them flatter, put the economy back on track, and then we'll be very welcome to have Mr. Forbes' endorsement when we win the nomination.
All right.
And I'll welcome you to Rick Perry's victory party.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks. Good to see you both.
Great to be with you both. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Mitt Romney has won in Iowa. He's